Hello, and welcome to a new episode of How to Build a Theatre, a podcast charting the creation of a new theatre in Brussels while looking at the wider theatre industry. My name is Edward McMillan, the Artistic Director of the Bridge Theatre here in Brussels.
And I am Phil Wilcox, an opera singer and choir director based here in London, currently in the brutalist architecture of the Barbican. You might even be able to hear the air conditioning unit going.
Barbican is definitely one of my favourite spots in London. In fact, I've probably said that already on a podcast because we recorded from there.
Exactly, yeah. I'm just downstairs from where we recorded our in-person catch-up, which was probably about a year ago now, which seems nuts.
It was at the time of the horrible setback.
Indeed. Oh.
You can check the episode now. It's called The Setback. I can't remember what
that's a classic podcast title, isn't it? Speaking of which, I feel like we should have picked a simpler tagline.
What do you mean? It rolls off the tongue, Phil.
Gosh, you make it sound easier every month. I mean. Well, we ought to catch up about what's going on. We are in August, brackets. We're not really in August. We're recording this in July. But
we're actually in July.
Yeah, we're pretending that we're in August. What's been going on at your end?
So, I think we've been recovering from lungs. You know, getting. When I say recovering, you know, it's in a positive way, assessing and moving, getting onto our next level, basically, moving on up. We are hoping to have a new production in November because we wanted to basically capitalize on the success we had with lungs and keep our audience who kept asking us, when is the next one, when is the next one? We wanted to keep them keep bringing them stuff rather than waiting again for like another year, which we really didn't want to do. So anyway, fingers crossed, everything looks fine for a production in November, which I can't quite tell you what it is yet, Phil. But I'm hoping soon we will be able to announce that. And then we also have our lovely workshops all set up. So yeah, things are kind of quite nice. And we are internally reflecting a little bit on how we run things organizationally, hopefully how we will eventually pay ourselves, because we're still doing this on a no pay basis. So we've always had this kind of agreement that our creatives and our instructors and our teaching staff will get paid, but us on the admin side won't for the moment, so the overheads are not covered, but we're now trying to find ways to make that happen. So it feels like organizationally also we're stepping up.
How are you going to shift into that mode? I'm immediately minded of the wonderful Dragon's Den that we have here in England, the programme where entrepreneurs come and pitch their ideas, and sometimes they're fledgling companies and maybe running off trustees, or they're running off their own money, or they're taking a few years to turn profit, which is totally natural certainly for a young company. How's the Bridge hoping to get to that point? Are you hoping, because the arts famously don't tend to turn a great profit?
Yes, of course, we're not talking profit strictly, we're talking operating revenue, if we want to use the correct terms.
Thanks, Deborah.
Yes. But yes, it is something we're putting serious thought into. I think first of all, the first thing is to start budgeting these expenses, which we've kind of just been ignoring for the moment. And also we're pushing now for our different revenue streams, which we've always been trying to do, but for example, working more with corporates and pushing much more our corporate offer. We've got various training courses, which we've done a few of and are very successful, but we know that more organizations can benefit from that. So that's part of it. And then also scaling up our activities in general. And also we're now looking into taking more advantage of a scheme here called Tax Shelter, which is, I'm not going to go into the details, but basically companies can save money on taxes by putting some of their profits, I guess, towards helping the arts, in this case theatre, and we can benefit from that, but it's just a complicated system to work out how we can benefit from it. But it's a bit like a subsidy, but it's not quite a subsidy, basically. So you can receive some money back on your expenses, which would help a lot. So we're now looking into that as well, and we're hoping that these things will start to, so the tax shelter plus our scaled up workshop plus working more with corporates, all these three will help us to get more revenue. But I'm not sure it's going to happen immediately, of course.
I saw something today which was quite interesting, certainly from the point of view of people who work in an industry that's heavily patronised by industry and by individuals, about number of quite large trusts actually folding themselves because of the idea of the pot of money that they have continuing to grow, continuing to maintain by effectively being invested in stuff that they don't feel that they can morally continue to, and they call it post-colonial capitalism, I think, and you know, certainly trusts that are funding things like the arts and things that are morally, socially more advanced, progressive, thinking, actually looking internally and going, oh, how can we, on one hand, promote this and give money to that, whilst also, you know, investing essentially in capitalism. Sometimes when you delve into it, isn't actually the sort of nicest way to maintain your pot of money. Anyway, I'm blithering on about it because trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't really, but it's the first time I'd heard of that. I thought that was quite an interesting thing, and maybe a heads up for us in the arts who rely on that to think about what that might mean.
And where your money comes from. But then there's the argument, and this comes from the movement called effective altruism, which is about how you could be most effectively altruistic, and there are those who then argue, is it, if it, do the means and the ends, what am I trying to say? Do the means
justify the means justify the
does the ends justify the means?
Do the ends justify the means? Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's good. You know, and if you yes, I mean exactly, like where if you're investing some money in something bad, but then you do something good with the end result, where is the line? Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's it. It's a line, isn't it? I guess it depends how bad the bad
how
thing
bad.
is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, it's about time I think we heard from our guest, Ed. Who have we got this month?
Yes, I'm very excited about this one, Phil. So today we have a lovely lady called Jess Lowe, and she is an agent for actors at an agency called Simon & Howe, and she's calling in from London. So hello, welcome to the show, Jess.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. Really good to meet you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks
Exciting.
for coming. I'm glad. Well, we're going to start, just like any good first meeting, with a little bit of icebreaker, a few quick-fire questions if you're up for that. You can go into detail if you like, or you can just give me straight answers, up to you.
Okay, no pressure.
Brilliant. Take a deep breath and here we go. What's your favourite season or time of year?
Oh, summer. I'm a sun baby, so absolute, heat. I mean, not that we really get it much in this country, but yeah, summer.
True, we're always lucky when we do. What about when you go to the zoo, or if you go to the zoo, what's the first enclosure that you run towards? What's the animals you most want to see?
Oh, great question. Don't know why, but penguins or giraffes. One extreme to the other. Yeah, one extreme to the other.
Brilliant. What's the first thing you do in the morning on a regular, weekday?
Cup of tea. Yeah. Proper breakfast builder's tea. Yeah.
When you're, let's say with work, actually, this one, texting and emailing or picking up the phone?
It's all email now, isn't it? Yeah, email. I miss phone calls, but...
would you prefer to go back to phone calls, do you think?
Maybe a little bit kind of more of a 50-50. But at the moment it's definitely emails. It's all digital.
You miss the old telegram.
Yeah, I know. Showing our age.
What was the last song or album or band that you listened to?
Ooh, well, I was at Glastonbury this year for the first time.
Nice.
So kind of, the last person we saw there, it was Elton. So I'll go with that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
So, Jess, I would like to hear a little bit about your life, actually. Maybe my first question is, perhaps you're an agent. So would you like to explain what that actually is, what that entails, and then perhaps explain how you got there?
Yeah, of course. So that's correct. Yeah, an agent primarily working with actors. And I've been doing that for over a decade now, which is crazy. That's gone quick. I suppose our main job, if you really had to pinpoint it, is to get actors in the room. It's about kind of getting those opportunities for the clients that we represent. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that comes with that along that process, but I would say that's kind of our main thing that we do from day to day is really try and open those doors and create those opportunities for our clients.
I think that's really interesting that that's the first thing you say, because I would imagine a lot of members of the public don't even consider the stage before the audition process even, and how difficult that is even just to be seen for actors these days. And it really shows how much competition or demand there is out there for these roles. That this is like how you see the role and how you see this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the people in the room so that they can then eventually show off their talents and get the job. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we work as kind of the middleman, is a kind of way of saying it, between our actors and casting, or our actors and production, our actors and, theatre makers, directors. We are kind of, I suppose we facilitate a lot of the process for our actors and for kind of getting them seen for auditions, for casting, self-tapes. And then that process kind of repeats again when they do eventually book the job. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot that goes into kind of getting them in the room in the first place. So I suppose it's kind of nice for actors to have someone else fighting your corner in that respect.
Yeah, I think we'll unpick the nuts and bolts of it, because I'm super interested to hear how the sort of, from your point of view, how it all really works. How did you? We ask this question a lot of everyone who comes on, and we've had guests from all over the theatre industry. How is it that you found your way to be an agent? Were you interested in theatre and drama as a child, and did you funnel down into being an agent, or were you always sort of thinking, no, I want to be the introducer, I want to be the person who puts people in contact with each other? How did it happen for you?
So I think I'm probably that typical story. I very much it's what I lived and breathed when I was a child. I went to after school, lessons and clubs. It was drama, it was dance, it was singing, it was 4 or 5 times a week. I also did it at school. GCSEs, it was drama, it was theatre studies, it was media. I kind of was always kind of in that world, did performances all the time, and I really thought dance was kind of where I spent most of my time. So I just presumed that's kind of the road that I would go. That would follow. I trained for 3 years as kind of a dancer, in dance and musical theatre. And upon graduating, I was kind of like, I'm not actually sure this is what I want to do. I'm not sure this side. I'm actually quite an introvert. So for me, kind of, it was, just a bit like auditioning and all of that side of it. It, as we all know, it's a super tough industry. And I think I quickly realised I don't think this side is for me. But I absolutely wanted to stay in the industry. It's kind of all I've known as well. So yeah, I reached out at the time. I kind of reached out to child agencies and was like, I think this is what I want to do. And yeah, I got an interview, and kind of the rest is history.
And you
really.
So your first work, do you mean child agencies as in working with child performers to find opportunities for them? Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So I became an agent for children initially, and did that for a few years and really loved it. And it was kind of, yeah, it was like, you know, I learned on the job. I learned kind of everything I kind of, well, know now, I suppose. So it's slightly different than obviously working with, you know, adults. Obviously lots and lots of crossovers, but yeah, slightly different in the way you work. But yeah, that was my kind of introduction into it, really, and quickly realised I really loved it. I used to teach as well, so I think it was that nurturing talent that I really kind of fell in love with, and really enjoyed. And that's when then, after a few years, I went on to work with adults instead.
Kind of said it there a little bit, but how would you see, what is the difference then between working with children versus adults? How does that differ from an agent point of view?
I suppose from an agent point of view, there's lots of different kind of, well, obviously rules and regulations around kind of child performers, and, you know, they have to have licenses to work. I mean, and, you know, on the surface, the job is very much the same with what you do as an agent. I think for me, obviously, a lot of the time when you're working with or you're representing children, you're speaking to parents or guardians a lot of the time as well. So although you do build that rapport with the child, it's not as much as kind of me working with the clients that I work with now. And I think that's probably just why I moved over. I was kind of ready to really kind of, work with my clients on a one-to-one basis and kind of, build that rapport and see that kind of, I suppose, kind of growth and that kind of real career progression. I love working with kind of new, I still love, you know, raw talent, and working with talent kind of that they don't know how, you know, they don't know that they're good. I love finding that kind of talent, and kind of new grads. But yeah, it's just, I think, just kind of following that progression, like I said, and you know, it's just, I think it's very different, isn't it, when you're working with someone who's like, this is what I want to do as my career.
I get you touched on it there a little bit. I was interested when Ed said that he'd asked you to come on this month and chat with us, because I have I'm a performer as well, an opera singer, but in generally in terms of how certainly the classical music world operates, it's in terms of agents, agencies, managers, etc. In comparison to the world of theatre, straight theatre acting, I see on the Simon and How you also cover things like puppetry and performers like that. Across the board, there's sometimes different types of agents, isn't it? And then sometimes it's because of the different type of work that you're going in for, but also the different type of, setup that the agent or agency has. And some can be quite a bit more like an agency, where they have lots and lots of artists on a roster, and it's about throwing, sort of quantity out there, but not a lot of personal, maybe relationship and management for the individual artist's career, right the way to the other side, where you've got an agent who acts for maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, whatever people, and they're really focused on each individual's career progression, giving advice sometimes, even having the skills and expertise to advise, okay, you've worked for that company in that sort of role, right, you really ought to be thinking about this is your next step, these are your these are your next roles you should be looking for. Is that where do you see yourself in that? Are you it sounds like you're quite sort of hands-on with your clients, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having a really good relationship with your actors is really important. I always say to my clients, the more I know them as people, the easier it makes my job. It's much easier for me to talk about you freely, to write a lovely email about you, or to pick up the phone and talk about you to casting if I know you as a person and I know you well. So I do tend to, when I first meet actors, ask a lot of questions. Because I think it helps. I think kind of, just, having kind of a more well-rounded knowledge of a person, it does just make my job a lot easier. And I also think that kind of having that relationship with your actors, I think you'll reach the end goals quicker because you know exactly what work they want to do and what work they don't want to do, and what work they, excel in, where their skill set really is. And yeah, I'm hoping that then, we can kind of get them in the door for the work they want to be doing. And hopefully that then leads them to book those jobs as well. And also be doing what they want to do. I think life's too short to be, on a job for 9 months and be miserable or be like, oh, this isn't really what I wanted to do. So, I think that's a massive part in it as well. And as I said before, I enjoy that kind of nurturing and helping. And I think sometimes our industry, it's a great industry. I love the world we work in, but I think that it can be quite a lonely and isolating place at times. And I think especially for people that are newer to the industry, I'd much rather they had someone they could pick up the phone to and be like, there are no silly questions, but ask the silly questions too. Do you know what I mean? Just say, I don't know what they're asking of me here, or as you mentioned, kind of, what should I be taking this? Is this right? Is this the next step for me, or should we be thinking of another direction? I think it's just good to be able to, have that communication and have that chat together and figure it out together.
I think that's really beneficial for that sort of artist-agent relationship, and I guess as well as a slightly further step back to the kind of umbrella idea, you also exist within Simon and How, which is, I guess, a big organisation of agents. So even do you find that operating underneath a bigger umbrella, as it were, gives you support as well in how you go about it?
100%. So I've rejoined Simon & Howe after a few years of running my own agency, and as much as I love doing that, it's hard. It's hard to kind of be doing that alone day in, day out. So it's so nice to be back in the fold, and I'm lucky to work with a really kind of generous bunch of agents who all have kind of knowledge in different areas, and are really, like I said, generous at kind of offering that out to the team as well. So it is really nice to kind of, and sometimes just those silly things, you want to be, am I doing this right? Is this right? Am I right in thinking this? So just to kind of have that backing is really lovely. Yeah, and really important.
You mentioned previously that you love working with raw talent and up and coming, and I'm just wondering how you find these people, and what's your kind of, does it mean going to lots of grad shows, or how do you come across new clients?
Yeah, it's a few different ways really. Like obviously we get a lot of people that kind of write in and ask for rep. So that's obviously one way we kind of see new faces. Grad shows, absolutely. And different shows just generally when you're kind of, at the theatre watching different performances, whether that's something, a current client's invited you to, whether it's something you're just going to see because you want to. Grad shows, also a lot of kind of new clients who are wanting rep will kind of invite us to things as well, which is a great way to kind of see new faces. Even seeing kind of new faces pop up on screen. And it's kind of, every which way we can. We're kind of always, I think as an agent, you're always on the lookout. Always got your eyes open.
What are you looking for? It might not be easy to explain, but what do you think catches your eye?
I really wish we're always asked this, and I'd love if someone has their kind of real kind of I don't know, definitive answer on it, because I'm always like, it's really, I think each agent is looking for something maybe different, or something different catches their eye. And I'm still yet to completely pinpoint what it is that makes me drawn to certain actors, but it's just it's sometimes, I mean, obviously look is a massive thing, Just there might just be something in them that kind of, you know, you're like, oh yeah, they look great face. Obviously you look at kind of past work, what they've done, and ultimately as well, it's just kind of, if it, you know, especially if kind of actors are writing to us, just even them filming something and us watching, sometimes you just get a feeling for that actor, and you're like, actually, I think there's, you know, something I can work with here. And I don't know, it's all subjective, isn't it? I think that's what's interesting about our industry. I think you can have two people sat and watch exactly the same film, and someone's like, oh, I think they're a fantastic actor, and someone's like, oh no, I didn't really like that performance. I think that's just what makes it interesting. But yeah, I'll have to come back to you on that once I get my absolute definitive answer.
It's going to be in my next set of quickfire questions.
That definitely won't be a quick answer.
But it is amazing, isn't it? How each of us has something that we see in other people, and it's that magic spark that we're looking for, and we spot it and we know what it is when we see it ourselves. But to convey that to other people, to explain that, I don't think it's even possible, really. Yeah.
Agreed. It's just all, it's all subjective. But it'd be boring, wouldn't it, if we all liked the same thing or saw the same thing in people. So.
Or maybe just moving on a little bit, I would like to ask you what the best part of your job is, and if you wouldn't mind, the worst part is.
No such thing. So, do you know what? It's probably the best part is hands down making those phone calls, being able to pick up the phone and say to your actor, you did it, you booked it, the job's yours. And whether that's, you know, a massive, you know, kind of international, you know, TV film job, or whether that is just someone's first gig, that's the first thing, you know, first professional bit of work that they've done. That is, if you could bottle that feeling and sell it, we'd probably make a lot of money, because you know, that's what we do it for as well. That's, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, that's the end goal, isn't it, for our actors to be working. So to make those phone calls, and obviously there's been a lot of work that has gone into getting to that point as well, not just for us, for our clients as well. So I think that's absolutely the best part of it. And on the flip side, it's probably the worst part of our job is probably also making those phone calls to say, no, sorry, not this time. It hasn't gone your way. Because as well, like you want your actors to succeed. But as agents, we go through that journey with them. We go through those ups and downs, you know, and we are emotionally invested as well. So when we get the no's as well, we're like, oh, and then you have to make a phone call, and you know how much your actor wanted that job. So that probably is, the best and worst part of it.
Have you this? Let's make this the lowest ebb of our podcast. Have you ever had an artist turn around and be like, do you know what? That's it. That's the 10th rejection this season. I'm done with it now. Thanks for your help.
Thankfully, not when I've made that phone call. Obviously, can you imagine? No. I mean, obviously, you have it where, you know, I have had to have difficult conversations with my actors where they've gone, I can't do it anymore. It's, you know, it's everything that comes with it as well, isn't it? It's everything that comes with that world of being an actor, and auditions and the side hustle and everything that comes with it. And hats off to all the performers out there for, you know, the resilience is amazing. It's a hard old slog at times, isn't it?
I've got a sort of another nuts and bolts question to drag us away from that.
Good.
It's so you've got your roster, you've got your artists, and I guess there's a certain element of renewal when you find your new grads and everything like that. The process then of making those connections, linking those artists, you know what they want to do, and so I guess there's a certain element of you looking for work that they want to do. You'll have contact as well with casting. You'll be able to literally, as they say in the industry, open the doors to those people. I've got your guy. I've got this. You're looking for this role. I know the person for that. I know the lady for that. And equally as well, I guess you might also have access to those people in a sort of slightly less formal way. So you might be invited to events and post-production events and that sort of stuff, whereby you can, under the umbrella of I'm the agent and I'm from an agency, I can go and chat to you and say, right, what's coming up next season? You've not published that yet, but I'd like to know so I can prepare my guys for you. Can you talk us through a little bit about the maybe even some of the secrets that we don't know about, and is it all champagne parties?
Oh, I wish. I wish. Where are these secret champagne parties happening? I want to be invited. It is. You're right. There is a lot of kind of networking. You do kind of end up at the same kind of nights out, or kind of performances as kind of casting a lot of the time. So there is a chance there to kind of chat and build those relationships, and you are building them really day to day for what we do. The amount of time we're on email, phone calls do still happen, I promise, on the phone. You do build that back and forth, and you do start building that trust as well. For me as an agent, I think that's the biggest thing. It's kind of when you are sending someone through to casting office, you're sending the right people through, and actually if something comes out and you go, actually this time I just don't have anyone that's right, and you don't have anyone that's right, I think that's the way to kind of build trust, and just making sure you are sending forward the correct clients each time. Even if that's one of two of your absolute best, just knowing that these people that you see will 100% be correct for this production, and we'll do a really solid audition for you as well, because that's what casting wants.
I guess that's a feeling from your side as well, isn't it? That's what makes an agent great or not, is having that sense of when it's right.
Yeah, I think so, and kind of getting to know kind of casting officers and the projects they tend to cast, or directors that they tend to work with on a regular basis, or shows that maybe they've cast before that you maybe know, okay, I know season 2's coming up, and kind of I've watched it, I understand kind of the feel of the show, and I know kind of which clients of mine might be right for that. So that again goes back to kind of just knowing your actors really well, because again that just makes that side of my job a lot easier. But there is lots of networking that goes on, and it's just, again, like I said, over time you do just end up building those solid relationships along the way.
Ed, from your point of view as well as producer and casting director, I suppose you are as well for the Bridget element too. That relationship goes two ways, doesn't it? You said yourself that that Jess put forward some great people, for example, for Vincent River, wasn't it? And from your point of view as well, you're thinking, well, I need to cast this. I know this half dozen agents will have good people on their books, so I'll send them an email and say, who have you got?
Yes, I mean there is a certain amount of relationship building for sure. Yes, within from the casting office, from a producer to the agents as well, because again, it's the reliability thing, it's the trust thing, as you said. Yeah, absolutely.
We also know as agents that just that kind of, obviously a lot of the time as well, it can be out of casting's hands. They do a great job with what they do, but obviously when it comes down to it can be actually it's the director's choice, or it's the brand's choice, or it's production's. It doesn't always just fall on them that who they cast in the role. it's, you know, it's obviously kind of, they have a say in who they bring in, but it, you know, it's not always down to them on who actually gets the job in the end.
I think that's one of the things, isn't it, that the performers and actually the people around them, even the families of performers, the agents, the people who might be, when involved in that person's career, has to really hold on to, isn't it? There's so many factors. There might be umpteen people who are right for the role, the right fit, etc., yada yada, and then there's so many different factors from so much everything, you know, that could be the reason why they don't get the role in the end, and so that rejection, which feels on the outskirts like a, you know, you're not good enough for this, is actually in reality often you are good enough for this. It could have been you. It's just not you this time.
100%. I completely agree. I try and always say to my clients as well, just do a solid audition. That's all you can do. If you walk out of the room or you send off that self-tape and you go, that is the best I could have done, then that's okay with me. You know, yes, we all want to book the job, but actually it's book the room, isn't it? It's book the room, not the job, because you as you were just saying, you can only do so much, and then it does come down to actually, you know, we just need, you know, that those two actually gel just slightly better, or, you know, we're making up a family and that doesn't quite work. And, you know, if you're going, you know, if it's, you know, the third, fourth recall, it's definitely not down to your talent. It's down to a lot of other things, other factors.
You've mentioned a couple of times self-tape. So this is when
Yes.
The actors send in a tape. It's just they film themselves according to the audition requirements and send it in. What's really interesting from my point of view is how much I see that taken over, especially basically in the post-COVID world. And I just think it's incredible how, because we all have these amazing phones with amazing quality, but like they all look the self-tapes that I have seen all look extremely professional, as in like they could have been filmed by a professional, like a filmographer. But I'm wondering, you know, that's one change that definitely we've seen in post-COVID, and that seems to be more and more prevalent. People have asked for self-tapes as the first port of call more and more, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see other changes like that since COVID, especially, and as we go towards a more digital world?
I think self-tapes is probably the biggest change that we've had. I think just generally everything's gone more digital. I think it was probably going to go that way anyway, because that's the world we live in. I think maybe just COVID has sped up that process for us all.
And do you see that as a positive thing or a negative thing, maybe?
I see the pros and cons. I think there's massive pros to self-tapes. I know not everyone's a fan, but, you know, the fact that actors can, you know, still work their day job and film their self-tape in the evening and have it in my inbox ready for me to send off for the 10 a.m. deadline the next day. I think that's great. I think it saves that actor having to spend £80 on the train to come down to London to be in the room, you know, especially for the initial casting. You know, I think that's a massive benefit for people. And I'm hoping as well that casting may want to correct me on this, but I'm hoping that actually more people can be seen if, you know, if they can do self-tapes, because hopefully they can see more tapes than they can people in person. From my point of view as well, for actually just kind of being able to see my actors, you know, just little snippets of my actors kind of on a daily, weekly basis as well. Because obviously before it was, you know, here's your material, this is where you're going, this is the time of your casting, you know, have you got everything you need? Have you got any questions? And if not, it's off you go. Whereas now we get to see what our actors are kind of effectively, you know, not in the room, but doing in the room, or what they would have done in the room. that's really great for us to see. It's you know, it's really great for kind of us to see what they can do, and you know, they might surprise you at times, or you just see that growth, especially you know for young actors. You know, if they've just graduated, or you know, they're just coming into the industry, it's just really great just to kind of just keep seeing them do little snippets of work. So I think that's a massive positive. But obviously it's always good to get in the room, isn't it? It's always good to kind of, you know, meet people, have that face to face, take that direction, get your personality across, build that rapport. I can absolutely see both sides.
Do people still just prop their phone up on the mantelpiece, as it were, and do the sort of to camera beat, or because I found that certainly over lockdown, that was towards the end of it, when projects were starting to come back with sort of weird 2-meter rules and all that sort of stuff. The idea of, even for quite, let's say, high level work, you could just pop your phone up, do your bit to your phone, send it off, and that would be acceptable. I've noticed in the last couple of years now, we're sort of back, as it were. Video rounds are completely normal, but you either find it explicitly mentioned, or the implication is there that, actually people are now going out and spending a couple hundred, £200 or £300 on either a friend or a studio that can make them a really good video to set them above the rest. Do you see that that could also in itself provide the sort of barrier?
I don't. So I suppose I mean we never get it through from casting. I've never seen that as a requirement to get it filmed professionally at all. And I think the fact that obviously, you know, generally everyone's got kind of, you know, iPhones, Androids, you know, there's so much you can do with your phone now. So, you know, I would always say to my actors, don't worry about going and getting it filmed professionally. Just make sure, I think the biggest thing is just making sure you've got that space in somewhere, even if it's small, in your house, that, you know, or that good self-tape setup, that you can just, you know, if a tape comes in, you don't have to worry. You just know, well, that's where I film it. And, you know, I've got good enough light in there. And, I think actors have to remember, you're not being, I know it might feel like it sometimes, but you're not being tested on you know, your filming skills or your editing skills. It is about your acting and you know, and that character you produce. It shouldn't be about anything else. The self-tape setup is just there just so that we can see you at your best. You know what I mean? We can see you clearly and we can hear you clearly. That's really what it should be about, and nothing more.
And I think from the casting point of view, it doesn't really matter on the quality of the actual footage. You understand, like, that's not what we're looking for. Obviously, it is different for the opera world, where you need to be able to hear. Maybe that's also a difference. Whereas
screaming close distance into a phone, doesn't always produce brilliant results.
Agreed. I mean, I think it's important to be able to hear and see the client clearly. And there's something with that, it does end up looking slightly more professional then, doesn't it? And clearer, and it looks like you've kind of taken a bit more time and care over it. But yeah, I wouldn't say that anyone needs to go out and spend money on their self-tapes in that respect.
And maybe just to follow up on that, do you see any other? How is the industry? Is the industry changing? I mean, how do you see the casting industry changing? I mean, self-tapes is one obvious example. Do you see any other transitions since you've been in the industry for 10 years?
I think another big one, I suppose, is because there's so much more content out there now. You know, with streaming sites, with Apple and Amazon and Netflix, you know, I think in the kind of TV and film world, I do feel like kind of new faces are coming through a lot thicker and faster, which has got to be a good thing as well. You know, see more kind of different, diverse talent on screen is great, and just new faces all the time. And obviously, I think that will probably continue because, content is so readily available that new stuff kind of is being made all the time. which is which is good for our actors.
Yeah. But that's nice to hear that you see that positive, or I see it as a positive development. Yeah. We are running out of time, but Phil, maybe you have another question.
I was just going to ask Jess. It's been really great to chat today, Jess. Thank you so much for coming. I just wanted to see as a little closing. I mean, we already had a nice positive closing message there. But what have you got? Is there anything you can share with us that you've got coming up next? Either whether some of your actors have got exciting work coming up, or whether you as an agent have got something exciting you're looking forward to?
Ooh, no, I mean, nothing we can really kind of share unless it's out on socials.
That makes it more juicy.
Unfortunately, we're kind of, our hands are tied.
Yeah, this won't go out for a month, so
yeah. But watch this space. Oh, but it's been a pleasure, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Yes, thank you so much, Jess, and thank you so much, Phil.
My pleasure as always. See you next time.
See you next time.